The selfie is a word of the moment as much as it is a timeless concept.
Sociologists look at how the self is constructed in the context of other people. In the very early part of the 20th century, a sociologist named Charles Wharton Cooley coined the phrase looking glass self. In part, we come to know who we think we are based on the reactions we get or think that we're getting from other people. And selfies are really just a 21st century extension of that.
We're learning a lot now about how we represent our own sense of self in the brain and how self-related processing activates brain systems. And what we're finding is that the way in which the self is represented in the brain is really dynamic. It's really changed and altered by the ways in which people interact with one another. And so you can only help but wonder how representing yourself in these kinds of daily activities in selfies is actually not just representing who you are at the current moment, but actually in turn changing the way that your brain processes that sense of self.
We think a lot about self-portraits in the primate behavior world, going back to about 40 years ago when a psychologist named Gordon Gallup was the first researcher to show that if you put a mirror in front of a chimp, he's able to figure out that that's him. Today we know that killer whales can do that, dolphins can do that, elephants can do that. Children can't do it until they're about 2 years old. So the average toddler, if you put a mirror or an iPhone selfie in front of that child, the child thinks that it's something to socialize with or is afraid of it. And then at about 18 to 24 months, they recognize that, hey, that's me.
So in gender studies, there's a debate. There's a kind of standard point of view where one camp thinks the selfie is actually an oppressive tool and reinforces certain standards of beauty. Whereas actually there's this more expansive camp of people of color who feel that it's an opportunity to present their image to the world in a way that you usually wouldn't circulate. So the selfie becomes a tool of empowerment.
You don't just take one selfie and that's the last one, but you're trying again and again to capture something essential about who you are and sort of the mystery of your identity. Augustine famously says, "I am a magna quaestio, I'm a great question mark to myself." And later medieval mystical traditions even spoke about the self as just as unknowable as God. So the reasoning is, if God is the absolute mystery and the human being is made in the image of God, then the human self is also equally just as much of a mystery.